There has been a lot of talk lately about so-called nepo babies, children of stars who find success in the entertainment industry riding on the coattails of their wealthy and well-connected parents. So you might be wondering how this ties in with Wheel of Fortune's longtime host Pat Sajak. Well, recently the aging television personality has come under fire for a comment he made that seemed to indicate he was grooming his daughter to take over either as the primary host of Wheel of Fortune or to replace Vanna White as the show's co-host. Join us as we dissect this sticky situation. Facts First presents Pat Sajak's comment on his daughter is causing outrage. Maggie Sajak has lived a life of privilege. Wheel of Fortune has long been a family game show in every sense of the word. The long-running and immensely iconic program has been hosted by Pat Sajak for as far back as we can remember. Recently, however, it's been speculated that Pat's daughter Maggie might become the new face of the series. Granted, the assertion at the moment is just a fan theory, but it's not a completely baseless one. After seeing a clip of Pat and Maggie bantering during a Wheel of Fortune trivia segment, viewers have begun to suspect that 28-year-old Maggie may very well be next in line for the Wheel of Fortune crown when her 76-year-old father inevitably steps down. Maggie Marie Sajak has spent the majority of her adult life performing as a country music singer. Her musical style has been compared to artists like Jewel and Michelle Branch, although you can also distinctly hear influences from stars like Carrie Underwood and Sheryl Crow. Maggie was born in 1995 and grew up in Severna Park, Maryland. At age 12, she picked up the guitar and started taking lessons. She released her first single, First Kiss, in 2011. In January of 2012, the music video for First Kiss, which was directed by award-winning director Trey Fanjoy, was featured on an episode of Wheel of Fortune to mark Maggie's 17th birthday. So, right out of the gate, nepotism was in full force. Most aspiring musicians have to jump through countless hoops just to get producers to listen to their demo tapes, let alone score a record deal. But here, little Maggie, while still in high school, was already being featured on primetime television. She went on to record several other singles, one of which was featured in the season finale of the series, Sweet Home Alabama. In 2013, while in her freshman year at Princeton, Maggie did a fashion shoot for Teen Vogue. Flash forward to January of 2020, she first appeared on Wheel of Fortune, filling in for Vanna White as letter turner for a week when White was hosting Wheel in place of Pat, who was recovering from surgery. In 2021, Maggie officially joined the Wheel of Fortune team as a social media correspondent. The rumor mill is churning. At the moment, Pat Sajak is still very much so the host of Wheel of Fortune. As of January 2023, he has yet to even put a potential date on his retirement. Still, this hasn't stopped fans of the game show from honing in on his recent remarks about Maggie's hosting skills while drawing their own conclusions about what that might imply. In a clip from the Holiday Trivia with Pat and Vanna special, which aired in December 2022, Maggie took over as host while quizzing Pat and Vanna with some festive holiday-related questions. After putting their knowledge to the test with prompts about Santa Claus's various nicknames and other bits of Yuletide trivia, Maggie received high praise from her father. At the end of the December 27th episode, Pat reflected on his daughter's hosting chops while telling her that she was, quote, actually a good host. His seemingly innocuous remark renewed intense speculation that Maggie was being groomed to take over as the next host. Earlier this year, Redditors speculated about the potential of Maggie taking over Vanna White's letter-turning duties, and as Wheel fans know, White has held that role for decades. After Maggie joined the Wheel family in 2021 as a social media correspondent, she made several appearances on the program both on stage and in behind-the-scenes clips. As of yet, she hasn't been given substantial duties outside of presumably managing TikTok and Instagram accounts. Still, some fans believe her role on the show is a path towards her eventually hosting. When Maggie was initially hired, hordes of bloggers, journalists, and Hollywood insiders voiced their opinion that her social media role was merely an attempt to introduce her to the Wheel of Fortune audience before Vanna inevitably retires. Since she filled in for her in 2020, she's already had a bit of practice performing her duties. The timing of this recent Wheel of Fortune related speculation has come at the perfect time. New York Magazine recently ran a cover story covering nepo babies. While Maggie wasn't included, if what Wheel fans are suspecting is true, in a few years' time, she just might end up being included in the list of celebrity children who achieved their fame out of nepotism. Sajak has hinted about his retirement. At 76, Pat Sajak's time on network TV is obviously limited. The veteran entertainer revealed to Entertainment Tonight in 2022 that his time as host of Wheel was almost at the end. When he made these comments, Sajak had been the host of Wheel of Fortune for 41 years. He said he wouldn't be doing it for another 40. Needless to say, it isn't so much a revelation as it is stating the obvious, but it does indicate Sajak is beginning to weigh his options and consider what the future has in store for the show. Sajak told ET that it was an honor to have been invited into people's living rooms for so long. He wrapped up his sentiments saying he and his team were very happy and proud of what they had managed to accomplish in the last 4 decades. Wheel of Fortune premiered in 1975, with Sajak becoming host in 1981. Vanna White, now age 66, was brought to the program as co-host and ladder turner in 1982. The two have been working with each other, sharing the screen with immense chemistry ever since. In 2021, Today reported that Pat and Vanna had signed a lucrative contract to continue co-hosting the game show until at least 2024. That said, Sajak's recent comments about his time on the show coming to an end, combined with those subtle hints that his daughter might be gearing up to take on a more active role with the series, indicate that he and White might be seeking an early exit from their respective gigs. Regardless, Wheel of Fortune fans shouldn't have anything to worry about. Sajak has assured us the show is likely to continue airing long after he and White take their leave. In 2022, Sajak was quoted as saying that while most shows that have gone on as long as Wheel have begun to feel stale, leading viewers to wonder if it's time to pull the plug, Wheel of Fortune was special in the way that it retains much of its originality and likability. He said the show will not die, and that it appeared as if he may go before the show does. Sajak's comments weren't the first time he addressed retirement rumors. In 2021, he told Entertainment Tonight that he couldn't foresee himself spending another decade as host of Wheel. He elaborated on the thought by telling the outlet he was closer to the end of his hosting duties than the beginning. He further expressed that he wanted to leave before people started tuning in and asking, "Oh, what happened to him?" Vanna White has expressed similar sentiments. Speaking to ET, the blonde bombshell said that she would likely leave the program before the end of the decade. She went on to say that the last 4 decades of working together, she and Pat became as close as family. "He's like my brother," White said, before adding they could finish each other's sentences if they wanted to. While they may be casually looking for the exit sign, it might be difficult for the well-paid duo of personalities to give up their lucrative roles. Reportedly, both Pat and Vanna make 8 figures a year. In 2016, Sajak was said to be making $15 million a year, while White was earning $10 million. Since they renewed their contracts a couple of years ago, it's likely they're making more than that. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Maggie Sajak is really being groomed to take over as co-host or host of Wheel of Fortune? Let us know in the comments section below.